underlying need for every parent to make their child a super child. Early intervention is the key to raising a mentally strong child. And the problem is, parents are in denial. They feel this can't happen to me or my child, which is how do you say divide their pressure, subtract stress in their life, and maybe multiply their self-esteem.
Self-esteem is the first point, right?
Self-esteem is the first point. There is also a stigma, right? That अरे मेरा बच्चा पागल है क्या? Or why do I need to go to a counselor? A set of challenges which parents face, which is screen time management, academic pressure, anxiety management, bullying, rebellion, aggressive behavior. And you're absolutely right, because social media is co-raising our children.
If you can give like 4 or 5 things which I would say like an early intervention to get a sneak peek into what is happening in your child's life.
Today, it is required for parents to first upgrade their knowledge on emotional literacy. If you are not incorporating free playtime in your kids' schedule, red flag, red flag, red flag from me.
Welcome to yet another episode of Education Matters. In today's episode, we have another interesting guest, Miss Urvashi. She's a national award-winning child and teen psychologist, also certified in child behavior management from Stanford University, USA, the founder and driving force behind Proparent. She's on a mission to make every parent's life simpler, smarter, and stress-free, because modern challenges don't come with a manual. She and her team cut through the noise of outdated advice and overwhelming information, offering science-backed, real-world solutions that work for today's families and educational institutions. So let's welcome
Ms. Urvashi, founder of Proparent. Your profile is very, very interesting. You know, you've been a national award winner. You're helping children and teenagers both, you've been counseling them. You know, the world that was about 20, 30 years ago or maybe 40 years ago when I was growing up, it's not the same, right? In fact, in the last few generations, the way the next generation is coming up is completely different. When we were growing up, our parents had a very short checklist. Go to this school, get this career, and you're done. Get a good job, get married, done. But today's day and age, everything has changed. And the way children are wired, the way they are thinking, the way they are getting, their information, it's just not parents who are influencing them or talking to them or just the school.
Right.
That's where, people like you come in, who are doing something really interesting and, helping out parents with real world modern solutions to all the modern problems that we've created with, the way the world is, progressing. So if progressing is the right word in this context. But so tell me about Proparent and what was the inspiration behind starting Proparent?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I'm really, really glad that you've given me this opportunity to speak something, or rather about something which is the need of the hour. It's very interesting when you ask me that what inspired me to start this journey. It's that, being a, parent coach, a child and a teen behavioral expert, what I saw in the recent trends with, parents becoming more and more aware, parents wanting the best for their children, with so many ed tech apps coming out, that a subtle pressure, which is not so subtle anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's in our faces. Everybody's talking about how to upskill your child. And for me, I can see this very unsaid or very, underlying need for every parent to make their child a super child. And it's not coming from a place of, you wanting to live your dreams to the child, or it's coming from a place of wanting to be a good parent, wanting to do the best for your children today, wanting to offer them and, let them experience every opportunity that is out there. But in the process, of this race of, skill your child, coding, and, just additional extracurricular things, and with, Ivy League universities wanting a very wholesome, you know, uh, CV for your child, and you running around everywhere, and with parents who are working, families becoming more nuclear. I personally felt, who is talking about how to de-stress your child in today's world,
Yeah.
or how to decrease the pressure of your back as a parent, or your child's back, how to make sure that in this entire need that we as parents have today, to make our child very skilled, you know go to these different 100 types of classes, who's talking about their mental well-being, or who's helping parents also tackle the parallel issues that come up in this journey, which is their children facing bullying, with this need to moving from this organic childhood to what I call today a performance based childhood. There is so much anxiety naturally in children. There is so much social media comparison, in children naturally, which is, giving rise to so low self-esteem, anxious kids. And parents today need that kind of support, where what I call it as holistic child management. And that is why I founded this platform called Proparent. Because today parents are dealing with screen time addictions, gaming addictions, low self-esteem in children, anxiety, academic pressure, how to manage their entire time, how to keep their children motivated through this whole process. At the same time, you are a working parent, you have to deal with your own guilt, your own. So, this platform offers a safe space, a much needed space for parents who want to know how to navigate any and every situation through this journey called parenthood.
Yeah.
Because, see, when your child is a toddler, you have a different set of challenges. Maybe it's tantrums, or maybe it's picky eaters. When they transition to, preteens, it's different.
Yeah.
There are different set of things that you want to understand, where you want to make your child emotionally strong. So how do you, make sure that, they can resist bullying, cyberbullying, manage social media correctly. So when you come to this platform, what we have done is everything under this earth a parent may want to know or have a doubt about, that how much time should I spend with my child, how to manage screen time correctly, how to utilize it to the benefit of my child. At the same time, if I want to know, for everything we don't want to go to a counselor,
Correct.
you know and there is also a stigma, right, that
Yeah.
अरे मेरा बच्चा पागल है क्या, or why do I need to go to a
Yeah.
counselor. But what I felt and what I saw is, there is a need. Parents want to know these things, but when things go completely out of hand, when the child is completely rebellious, just doesn't want to listen, then they think कहाँ जाए, किसको पूछे, and what options do they have?
Yeah,
They
then,
ask.
then there's no choice, right? I mean, you've opened up a lot of questions in my head, because as a parent of a
Yeah.
13-year-old and a 18-year-old, right? You said certain things which got me thinking that, what am I doing right or wrong as a parent, right?
Right.
And I understand, this parents not going to counselors or, not seeking help. They only seek help at the last minute, right? When
Yes.
things are almost out of hand,
Yes.
when they feel very helpless and they want to go to someone. But I do believe that early interventions always are, better than waiting till the end. And I think that's where your platform would be really helpful. So let's go back to certain things that you said, social media, right? I mean, my children are on social media. I don't see them crazy after social media, like, let's go here and click this picture, and,
Yeah.
not that I monitor their social media because I want to give them their privacy as well, so I don't
Right.
follow them. But on and off, I do ask them what are they posting. And I've been lucky so far, but there could be things happening which I wouldn't know, right? I mean, because they
Absolutely.
lead that virtual life is very secretive, and parents get a very small glimpse into what is happening, right?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about that? Because I think that is one of the major issues I think most of the parents would be facing. And I think kids as young as 6 or 7 have seen them with phones and, on social
Yes.
media platform.
Absolutely. And so let me begin by what you said, that early intervention is the key to raising a mentally strong child today. And that is why we have built ProParent. Because parents have 100 questions, 100 doubts, and they rather ask experts than, blind leading the blind kind of situation where you're
Correct.
asking family and friends who are themselves struggling, with similar situations. So when you come to ProParent, you know, even if you have a doubt about, oh, is my child, you know, getting bullied on social media, how do I handle this, or at what age should I start giving, screens to them, and what apps are they on. So basically ProParent helps you bridge the gap of what you just mentioned, of not knowing what your child's world is. you know for example, I need to talk about something which is very real today, and that is today's social media apps are being used by youngsters as young as 11, 12, 13 to say, older teenagers to pursue dating relationships, and why is this something that I'm mentioning? Because I want to bring a very interesting case which I handled recently. Is that, you know, there was a young girl who came to me. She was all of just 12, and she had free access to social media. And what happens is, and parents should know this, that on social media, on platforms like Instagram, they have groups which is no longer just a group of 12-year-olds. You can add 14-year-olds on it. Those 14-year-olds who are friends with 16-year-olds, they add the 16-year-olds on it. So now you have groups or friendship groups or circles your child is a part of, where there are people who are, with a snowball effect, even 25-year-olds. And there is this new trend which we are observing called grooming, where older people can convince even a 12-year-old girl, say a 23-year-old boy, randomly got added on that group. She was a vulnerable 12-year-old where your, just hormonal changes are setting in. You start getting inquisitive about, the opposite gender, which is a healthy thing. But now, parents don't know this. She's, you know, got introduced to this 23-year-old guy who thinks she's capable of having a relationship with him. And they actually influence this young child's mind. Okay, you can do this. You can have a relationship with an older guy like me. And this term is actually a term in our psychology world which we are seeing so commonly happening, called grooming. Even to the point of this young child feeling obligated to send her sensitive images, have these, sexting kind of conversations with an older guy. And coming back to you, that if as parents, we are going to try and act cool, that, oh, I'm giving my child privacy, they know what they're doing, should only be on the premise if you are a parent who has a very strong communication with your child and is updating yourself as a parent, that what is going on in today's world and what all is possible when your child is on social media. And if you haven't done that, don't hand social media to your child freely, because they may get victimized not only just in the dating front, but in their self-esteem, in their self-image, in the way they should, think how should life be lived, right? So that's why Proparent is a place where you can come as a parent and update your knowledge and bridge this generational gap. Because I speak to teenagers day in and day out, and the only thing they tell me is our parents are thinking from their day and age and are giving us outdated advice. And today, the need of the hour for parents is not just to understand which is the best school to send to, which is the best classes, which are the best classes to send to, or how to academically, but to raise themselves. The question today in today's world is, if you want to raise your child in today's world, you'll have to raise yourself as a parent in terms of getting equipped with the right knowledge and discussing this with your child. It's only after I spoke to the girls' parents and them understanding कि ऐसा भी होता है.
It's completely shocking.
You know?
This is,
Yeah.
I'm pretty close to my children, and, we talk about a lot
Yeah.
of things, but the case that you put forward is really, really
Question
shocking.
today, Jitu, is are you talking about the relevant things?
Yeah.
It's not about me talking to my child and being close, but have I updated my knowledge to bridge this generational gap and understand what is going on in their world and what are the possibilities so that I can talk to them about these things. And, in my conversation, show them how to navigate this situation. And it's only when those parents understood they could guide their daughter out of this mess she got herself into, where she was completely influenced by a stranger on social media. And the problem is, parents are in denial. They feel this can't happen to me or my child, but I don't blame them, because in the first place they are completely unaware कि चल क्या रहा है.
Yeah, what's
what
happening?
are the trends?
Yeah.
What's going on? What are the possibilities?
Yeah.
And that is why Proparent, Jitu, because I wanted to create a place where parents can come and actually see what is happening in a teenager's world, because I have co-created this space with teenagers. Why certain parenting platforms today in themselves are outdated is because only a parent has created it for giving advice to a parent. But that is incomplete and a completely dangerous way to create a parenting platform today. So what we did is, we made this content with international experts who are child specialists, who are child psychologists. They know how to deal with children, giving the right advice to parents. But is that advice going to work? That's only possible when teenagers review that material and say, yes, if my parent comes and talks to me like
About
this,
these things, yeah.
I will listen. If my parent, comes and talks to me today about cyberbullying, this is something I want to talk to. If my parent comes and talks to me how to navigate friendships and dating online, this is something I want to hear.
Yeah.
And that is why, simple content on our platform, like the art of communication with your child, is not just me as an expert giving gyan to parents, ke aise baat karo ya talk this way, but with all my experience and a teenager's perspective, we have combined on this information on our platform so that parents know what is the right thing to do, and it will be something that is actually applicable. And children will listen. Because the most common thing is, yes, we are trying all this, but children are not listening.
Yeah.
From where you got this advice? From influencers on social media. Parent influencers, here, just some random Google. But has this been approved by a teenager? Has these been approved by this advice?
Which brings me to, you've shattered this whole image of me being a cool dad within like few minutes, because I always thought, I'm pretty much in tune with what my kids are going through.
Right.
But now listening to you, I think there might be gaps. And,
Absolutely.
I I think I should go to your website and read up some material and get insight into what's happening in their lives, or at least in general, what teenagers are going
Right.
through. I always thought that they have their own dictionary. Are you aware of that? Don't be salty, no caps, all facts,
Yes.
no printer. I go
Yes.
online, I read about all these things so that,
Yes.
when I'm talking to them, it just sounds little relevant. But at a deeper psychological level, I think what I'm learning is very peripheral, right? It's just like I'm
Yes.
trying to uh, speak their language, but not communicate with them, right?
I
I might be
agree.
speaking the same language, but I'm not communicating with them because their problems are different. So coming to the problems that you've mentioned, are you seeing this across the entire, India is not like similar, right? So, is
Yes.
this a more urban issue? Is this more upwardly mobile parents, or is this more middle class parents, or do you see this across all social strata?
So, to be very honest, Jeetu, first of all, I'm glad you're trying, at least, trying to speak their language. Small efforts on our part don't go unseen. Our children see those things. But, coming back to the latter half of your question, and that is this a very generic observation? Then my answer to you is yes. Because um, first of all, parenting is a global phenomenon,
Yeah.
right? And uh, with the advent of social media, it's not just children who are influenced, but it is the so-called, working class of parents, or, pardon my language, but, it is also, what we used to term as the middle class, who have higher aspirations. They too want their children
Correct.
to have the best, go for the best. Today, uh, even parental mindsets are being shaped by this hyper awareness of where your child should be, where they should go, what is happening. And with a mobile in every child's hand, the experiences are not going to be different. Every child is going to be subjected to some form of bullying. Every child is going to have these groups where they're going to explore relationships. Every child is going to face a lot of academic pressure. Even if you're the cool parent who feels that I just want my child to be happy, you are going to get sucked in. I have spoken to parents. You are going to get sucked in when your child gets a little older. When they're coming towards a competitive exam, say it could be the 10th, 12th, or any other, you do get sucked in
Yeah.
into this whole, fear of FOMO, missing out, that am I doing the right thing for my child? And like I said, today there is no difference in an urban, which we call a tier 1 or a tier 2 or a tier 3 city, unless you're comparing to very rural population, their issues with their children are
Yeah.
different.
And a deprived class,
It's a
where.
deprived class, but
Yeah.
if you don't belong to that and you belong to any other economic strata, if you are a working parent, if you are living in a nuclear family or a joint family, the issues are now very, very rampant and similar across you know economic stratas, or whether you call it age groups.
I think even national, international boundary. I think people are facing same issues. Recently, I saw a series on Netflix, Adolescent, and
Yes.
I mean, I don't want to talk more in detail about the series, but the incident about a teenage boy, who's being interrogated for a murder. I mean, the last episode. I mean, I'm a very tough guy, or maybe say emotionally dead at times, but while watching movies. But that last episode brought tears to my eyes. I
Right.
I was thinking, I was in that place, as a parent, that we want to do the best for our children, but how they are getting influenced, where they are getting all this information from. I think there's another bald guy influencer who's like me, but his talks are all about being macho, and he talks
Yes.
down about women, and he's
Yes.
raising this hyper masculine teenagers, and I think that part is also covered in that series. So yeah, what you're saying, probably it's not just across social strata, it's also across the world. The problems have become more and more similar.
Yeah.
The world is, from that perspective, though it's very big, but the problems are becoming more and more common.
Absolutely. Honestly, you brought a very interesting point up because parenting today, or rather just parenting, is a global phenomenon. Is parenting region specific or area specific? No, it's a global
It
phenomenon.
used to be once upon a time. It was very limited, right? We were very
Yeah,
limited in our own little world, and our aspirations were
absolutely.
limited.
Yeah.
But you're right. Aspirations are like, everybody wants a fancy car. Everybody
Everybody
wants to
wants,
eat
yeah,
in a fancy restaurant. You know,
yeah. And
influencers.
yeah, it's because we too are on Instagram,
Yeah.
right? Parents too are on Instagram. A lot of parents do feel, even in their friend circle, they need to have a certain image to feel good about themselves. So we can't just blame the children. But, coming back to what you just said, it's become a global phenomenon because today no country per se has become very region specific. We have broken boundaries because of social media platforms. Cultures are getting integrated, and now we are giving rise to a very common set of parenting, which has rather given rise to a very common set of challenges which parents face, which is screen time management, academic pressure, anxiety management, bullying, rebellion, aggressive behavior. And to be honest, for me, I saw the series Adolescence from a very different lens because it brings me back to that same point again. If you are going to be an outdated parent in today's world, not upgrading your knowledge of what my child's experiences are today, what they are going through, what is going on social media, bringing back to the point that you said, we have a specific section dedicated to what emoji means, what these slangs mean, so that even if you casually see your child's social media, you know what is going
Correct.
on. Because when I saw Adolescence, it didn't come as a shock to me because I am seeing this day in and day
Yeah.
out that parents are completely disconnected with their child's world. And like I said, and I have been saying, it wasn't the parents or any of the parents' behavior. If you saw the counselor asking that, does your father get angry? Is he an angry man? And whatever that young Jamie, spoke
Yeah.
about, it was natural fatherly behavior. Then where? Where did he learn to take these drastic steps? And you're absolutely right because social media is co raising our children. Today, you are not the only father or the male figure whose advice they find impressive or they're listening to. Like you mentioned, there are 100 other people who, for their own raising their followership, not being mindful of their content, making filling their own bank, because today influencers are being paid in lakhs,
Yes.
just because they have a x number of followership. So people don't care. These influencers are not responsible in creating responsible content, which we call as responsible netism. Because what you're talking about today, that child was a victim, which now parents should also know, is known as a sigma male.
Yeah.
It's called as a trend known as a sigma male, which in our times used to call as alpha male. And if anybody is interested in knowing what actually made Jamie do that, is the thought which these influencers are now making so famous, sigma male, you know this entire toxic masculinity, which is the 80-20 rule,
Oh, yeah.
which is that 80% of women or young girls get attracted to 20% of men who, display this toxic masculinity or this sigma male behavior, which is, ill-treating women, disrespecting them, maybe, never showing your emotional side as a man, just being rude and rebellious. And all these things creep into even household behaviors. You'll suddenly find, why is my son acting rude? Why is my son suddenly being aggressive? It's because you are completely unaware that these trends are going on, and your child
Somebody's
is
co-parenting my child
Yeah.
and raising him into to be
Yeah,
a
and
sigma male.
you're struggling at home saying, my child has suddenly become aggressive, suddenly become rebellious, suddenly, not wanting to listen to me. So today there are multiple factors beyond just your child being lazy, or that old thought process, what is
Yeah.
my child is just lazy or not wanting to say. There are 100 other things influencing, and if you are unaware of these, you're just going to have a very singular approach towards helping your child deal with these
Correct.
things correctly, right?
So, we spoke about the male child. I think sometime back we were also discussing about how teenage girls are getting influenced and, groomed by certain
Absolutely.
characters. You also mentioned another term, Sephora girl
Kids.
or Sephora kid.
Sephora kids.
Yeah. Do you want to elaborate what
I
that term
most
is?
definitely want to
Yeah,
elaborate
yeah.
on this, because I think what I'm seeing is too many broken young girls, Chitu. Too many broken young girls who have lost their self esteem and self confidence to social media. Because, to be honest, teenage years are the gawky years where you're going through physical development, bodily changes, hormonal changes. You're going to end up with acne. You're going to end up with a few weird facial hair here and there. You're going to end up with a little bit of weight being put on here and there, which was never looked down upon previously, you know. And today, what is happening is young girls, especially more than boys, and research has shown this, that young girls are 30 to 40% more likely to be, become victimized to, this whole social media image of what they should be looking like. And all this comes from these beauty influencers who are telling our children, that buy this, or you need to look like this in a certain way. It begins with that, and then it gradually, if you've seen it, moves on to, so buy this.
Yeah.
Buy this concealer, buy this lip gloss, buy this. Now people have come up with teenage beauty makeup lines. But why do teenagers need makeup in the first place? Because they've made to believe that this is what you need to look beautiful. And this whole trend is called Sephora Kids, where parents are even hosting birthday parties,
Wow.
at Sephora's. And what is happening is now, Jeetu, let me give you an example of this young girl who came to me recently. Let's call her Jane. Okay? So Jane came with her parents to me at the age of 14. Completely devastated. She couldn't even speak without crying and feeling nervous. And the parents just didn't know what is going on. They kept asking me, or they kept saying that, we are doing everything, we are telling her not to bother. And then when, I dug deeper, I realized that her anxiety was that she's constantly feeling not good enough. And not good enough to who? These, young girls who, are looking perfect on social media all the time. And I took it upon myself. And when I dug deeper into one of the young teenage influencers she was following, I realized that that young girl's mother has got a lot of slack for being a pushy mom and making her daughter do these things on social media so that they get brand endorsements and deals. So a lot of young girls don't realize that there are some toxic parents who are pushing their kids into all of this, making them have these videos and taking the glory out of their kids having 1,000 followers and feeling good about themselves as parents. Irresponsible parenting, I would call that, where then these other children, set of children who look at these teenagers, feel that these teenagers are actually doing this out of their own pleasure, but they are not.
Yeah.
They are pushed into this by their own parents
Parents.
who have some form of insecurity or unlived dream, And all this, what do I say? Haze. In all this haze, this girl kept feeling she's not good enough because she doesn't have the perfect jawline. She doesn't have the perfect straight nose. Her parents are not allowing her to buy all these beauty products so she can, enhance herself. And I mean, for me as a psychologist, to see this, I feel working on your child's self esteem should be a space where parents need to upgrade their knowledge. Because today's self esteem for young girls has become the number one target, which is like the collateral damage of social media. And if you, as a parent, don't know how to withhold that high self esteem of your daughter in this world which is trying to influence them constantly, you're going to lose your child. So, yes, academics karo, but please have this info. I'm not saying come to Proparent and get this
Yeah.
information, but please make sure you have this information so that you can groom your child.
So if you were to, like, I as a parent, right?
Right.
Even before I come to your platform and see what's happening, to our viewers, if you can give like 4 or 5 things which I would say like an early intervention to get a sneak peek into what is happening in your child's life, so that you can be aware, and if they need help, then you approach a platform like yours, or get whatever professional help that the child needs. But if you were to give these tips, right, 4 or 5 things to watch out for, what would that be?
I'm glad you asked me this. Because this is what I do. And this is, like I said, the need of the hour. Early spotting of the signs, early intervention, and not trying to, repair things once the damage has already occurred, right? So the first thing I would say is, yes, just let me give you an example. Just as we teach our children algebra, today it is required for parents to first upgrade their knowledge on emotional literacy, which includes high self-esteem, managing disappointment, failure, non-perfectionism, and translating this knowledge into emotional math for your child, which is how do you say divide their pressure, subtract stress in their life, and maybe multiply their self-esteem.
Self-esteem is the first point, right?
Self-esteem is the first point. So if your child has a mobile device and if they have social media, be assured, I can give it in writing, that their self-esteem is at stake, their self-confidence is at stake, because they are constantly on social media comparing themselves to unrealistic standards of beauty or male behavior or just materialistic possessions. And self-esteem is not just on looks, it's also got a lot to do with what you possess as a person. And today, if you feel you don't have a good mobile in your hand, or you're not wearing branded clothes, or you're not traveling business class, it hits their self-esteem.
Yeah,
You know?
I can give you an example.
Please
A
do.
friend of mine told me that
Yeah.
his son told him not to drop him to school
Right.
until and unless he doesn't upgrade to either a Merc or a BMW or an Audi.
Yes.
He said, "Don't insult me. Don't come to my school." And I was like, what, and this was a few years back, and my children were still younger those days, and I was completely shocked. So, I mean,
So, what do you need to do as a parent when such a situation happens, right? Because this is one of the most common things parents are facing, because children are becoming materialistically demanding because of this whole influencer culture. You need to have this to be happy, you need to have this to, feel that you're great. So, parents need to have intention or intended conversations with their children, that what, I know you see all this on social media, I know it's important, but first never feel that this is what real happiness is, and never make somebody else feel that. Why is that boy doing that to his father? Because there are some other ignorant kids whose parents have mindlessly bought them or can afford these things, and now those children have taken it upon themselves to take this a little harmless bullying and teasing to a level where you make the other child feel like shit if they don't have
yeah,
it, or they are nothing. And the child, imagine having to say this to his parent, that the parent is becoming an embarrassment for the child. Imagine how conscious or how nervous that child has become, that I need these things. So we as parents today need to become more aware that if you're handing a mobile to your child, which could be say 16 iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is the latest phone, you tell your child, if I ever realize that you're making somebody else feel lesser because of this, then you are not worthy of having this
yeah,
material possession, and I will have to reconsider in the future before giving you anything. Because the onus is not only on the parents of the child who's bearing this brunt, it is a collective onus
correct.
of parents in today's generation, that when you do hand materialistic things, or when your child is seeing these reels, you tell them, never ever, this is known as emotional literacy. Do not make somebody else feel lesser about themselves just because we can afford
For
this,
it.
or we have given this. How many parents have actually, who are even maybe viewing us, ever thought of having this conversation with their child, right? हम बस चीज़ें दे देते हैं, and then
We expect, yeah,
yeah,
that everything will be fine. It will
that
fall in.
everything will be fine. But children are children.
So it's again a very important point that
Yeah.
we spoke about how do we watch out for what children are going through, and I
Yeah.
think self-esteem is one of the cornerstones of
Yes.
what this new world has. I mean, or maybe say collateral damage of how this new world order is
Yes.
shaping up. But I don't want to. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I think what your point is focusing on children. I want to bring the focus a little bit onto the parents, like what you just
Yes.
mentioned. We also have very hyper achieving parents, right? They want to achieve everything. They want the best, and that's why giving iPhone 16, to my child, because I'm achieving, I'm doing well for myself, so my child will get this,
Yeah.
or we'll go and have a holiday in business class, and go to the best restaurant, or whatever. So, do you think there is some responsibility of the parents? At least, I mean, I understand from people who don't have, but people who
Yeah.
have, and how do we ask our children to watch out for? I mean, what is a suggestion you would give to those parents, and also parents who can't afford? How do you strike a balance?
So let me tell you this. To all the parents who can afford, if you can afford these things and you're giving it to your child without telling your child not to use these materialistic things to boast about themselves, and first make it a part of something they should be feeling, that, oh, just because I have this, I'm someone superior to other kids, or not making other children feel like that, you're setting your child up for loneliness and no social relationships in the future. Because if your child is going to grow up being high-headed about materialistic possessions, you are developing their a characteristic trait in them, which is going to make them feel one up about everybody, in the future.
And those are not real achievement, right? Because they've not done anything to achieve those things.
First of all, they have not done anything to achieve it. Secondly, you're not being mindful about, how to use that materialistic possession in terms of emotional literacy. Don't use this to feel you are one up or make somebody feel that they are lesser. Because what is our role as a parent, Jeetu? That we groom our we groom our children to have healthy relationships in the future. And if we are not going to give them that kind of direction, a child like this is going to grow up and have no friends.
Yeah.
Or only friends who are interested in being friends with you based on what you have, and you are going to be friends with somebody based on what they have. They are going to never have any real relationships in their life. And who is going to be responsible? Us as parents. Because kudos to you if you're a high achieving parent, if you're a hard working parent. But this has got nothing to do with social media. It's just general parenting. How to keep your child grounded. If you as a parent can be the king or the prince of Persia, but you have a grounded child, you have a sorted child for life. Because most of the parents who are rich, who are working, who don't have time, give rise to a very entitled class of children who are looking to, substance addictions for supporting their emotional needs. Just handing over material things to your child is, in fact, going to give a very negative ego boost, which is not going to help your child in the future to be grounded and mentally sane. So, this has got nothing to do with social media or anything.
Yeah.
You want to give rise to a grounded child, make sure you communicate the right things to your children when you hand over things to them or when you're being a parent, because they will take that learning into their future life. They will take that learning. They may fail in their business tomorrow. From a Mercedes they may have to come to a lower branded car, but your wise words of that doesn't define you or your happiness will take them a long way. Right?
I think very interesting points, that, as parents, we are supposed to, or rather, we should try to achieve emotionally stable, try to raise emotionally stable children, try to help them, reach their true potential rather than, pushing them towards something that we aspired to do. Raising happy children, I think, and it all starts by watching out a few things. And I think if people go to your website and parents try to understand, what you're trying to communicate from the children's perspective, I think it will help a lot of parents and it will help, a lot of families, I would say. And, I love this concept of co-parenting. So, we think that we are raising our children, but there are other factors also raising our children. And if parents just get aware about all these things, I think it'll raise a lot of happy families. So before we wind up, do you have any parting note or parting advice for parents and teenagers?
Actually, for the previous point, can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
One of the early things that I want parents to also know is parents of toddlers. What I'm seeing today is a very massive shift, like I said, from an organic childhood to a performance-based childhood. Where parents have completely packed their young children's schedules from the age of 2 to 7, where first they go to school, after school they are, go to a bunch of classes, and that's it. And nowadays there are so many schools that start very early, 7:30, 8. So for this you have to put your child to bed at 7 p.m. So what is happening is your child is going to school from say 7 to 3, from 3 to 6 they are in classes. And what is happening is, because of this, you're giving rise to a very socially disconnected and troubled child. Because at that age, it is my request to parents, if you are a parent who has overscheduled your child's, week. Maybe 2, 3 classes here and there is fine. But every day, if your child, after school has classes, then a routine, fixed routine, come home, eat dinner, brush your teeth, take a bath, go to sleep, wake up, you're giving rise to you're going to raise a child who doesn't know how to deal in real world situations, and it begins as young as 3 or 4. What if you are not incorporating free playtime in your kids schedule? Red flag, red flag, red flag from me as a child psychologist, because you cannot teach your child thinking skills, social skills, management skills by going to a class. You know, honestly, when our children have free play, and this is to all the parents of toddlers, they learn so much. For example, simple skills, how to make friends, how to keep friends. If you know what I've seen recently, Jitu, even in schools are scared to discipline kids, because the minute a teacher tries to discipline a child, the child goes home and an email has reached the school that how dare you talk to my child like this.
Yeah.
If you are going to overprotect your children, overschedule them, everybody asks me a question that I want to make my child resilient for the future. You said raise future ready kids. Can I ask you, what does resilience mean?
I mean, for me personally, I think resilience means it doesn't matter what situation is there. I should know how to handle that situation without losing my core faculty, right? The how I'm supposed to react.
So, to me, you're absolutely right. Resilience means you can face the toughest of situations or struggles in life, but yet have the ability to bounce back. But what is happening today is parents are not allowing their children to face toughness. First, they are overscheduling their kids. Even if your child or face real world situations in toddlerhood, that is playing dirty, in mud with kids. If somebody pushes your child, let them get pushed, let them understand how to handle this.
Yeah.
If your teacher is strict with the child, let your child deal with the situation.
Yeah.
If you are going to step in all the way, you are not being a good parent.
Yeah.
You are being a harmful parent to your child, because you're going to give rise to emotionally weak and dependent kids. If, for example, somebody pushes my daughter, she's 5-year-old, she say, oh, this girl pulled my hair in the class. I said, so what did you do? It got her thinking. So what did I do? I didn't go and complain to the teacher, oh, so and so girl has complained, please inform the parent. Parents need to realize that they need to push their children to manage themselves. Yeah, okay, somebody pushed you, what did you do? Okay, I told them not to push. Very good. Let the child push again.
Yeah.
If your teacher shouted, why did the teacher shout at you? Oh, because I was talking in class. Many children lie at home. I was doing nothing. The teacher still shouted at me.
That's not
And
possible.
you've reached the principal's office, your staff,
Yeah.
No, if your teacher has shouted at you, means there is something.
There's something,
Make
correct.
sure that teacher doesn't shout at you again. We need to put our children in line. There is so much about how to discipline your kids at home, how to maintain those healthy boundaries. If you're not going to do these things, these are the red flags for me as a psychologist, and this is what parents need to update themselves on. Okay, don't be too overprotective about your children.
Don't bubble wrap the world.
Don't bubble wrap them. Yes,
Yeah.
don't give rise to bubble wrap kids. Don't fight their battles.
Yeah.
Let them tough it out, because coming back to resilience is bouncing back in the face of struggle and discomfort. And if you don't allow your child to face that struggle and discomfort and give them that practice, that if you're facing this discomfort, what are you going to do about
correct.
it? And you only do everything, how are you going to give rise to resilient kids?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So this is what I wanted to say. And as a parting note, though only thing I want to say is today we are living in a world as parents where we have to manage our own aspirations, our own work, our own digital addictions,
Yeah.
yet manage children, and parenting is exhausting. And if we do not upgrade ourselves into what is needed to be, you know, a complete parent in today's world, we are going to miss out, and we are just going to do this very mechanically, you know, with, like I said, arguments, conflicts. We are not going to speak the language of our children. Yes, academics is important, everything is important, but please, there is help, there are experts, and even if you see yourself, second guessing that am I doing this correctly or not? Is there a better way? Can I manage this better? Is there somewhere as a parent I need to know more about this era in which my child is growing up? Do not hesitate, because it will always put you in a very wiser and more empowered position to be able to guide your child correctly. Don't be blind leading the blind in this generation. Be somebody who is informed, educated as a parent, not only just in what career path is for my child, but holistically what I need to do, and then enable yourself to guide your child correctly. And this is what we aim to empower parents with at Proparent.
Yeah.
So
It was really, really insightful, Ms. Urvashi, and I've learned a lot today. And I'm definitely going to go to your website and read more about what my teenagers are going through, and how I can become part of that world, which is so far, we have no idea about. So
Right.
I'm going to go and read up and try to connect at a more meaningful, deeper way. And I think your suggestions, both to parents and teenagers, I think are wonderful. And more power to you and people who are doing this job, because the the purpose of education is just not, uh, more knowledge. It's about
Yes.
raising happy children, more emotionally stable children, and actually creating a much better world than how we found it. So,
Absolutely.
thank you very much for your time, and we really appreciate you coming and spending time with us.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
for
very
having
much.
me here.
Thank you.